I had nothing to do with slavery. I am totally, open-minded. I'm cool with all these people. I got all these black friends. I got all these Latino friends. And so I'm not racist, right? So first you kind of have to get over that, which, okay, maybe yes, maybe no. I would assert, I've just read this great book, Everyday Anti-Racism, which, kind of for the first time in my life, I'm ready to embrace the fact that I'm racist. Like, so for a long time, I would say, well, black people can't be racist, right? You guys have the foot on our necks, so how can I be the racist? But I think it was really important for me to get to the moment to say, and what they say is, I said it a moment ago, we're all growing up, we're all forged in a racist society, right? So you cannot but help, it's osmosis. This stuff is just going to float in. The way you see the world, the way you see people, the way you think about your place in the world. So the whole, on the interpersonal front, I think that all of us have work to do to kind of even just acknowledge that, to get to that moment where you can say, all right, I'm not going to jump and be defensive. I'm going to accept the fact that it's not my fault. It's not that I'm a bad person. But I'm in this society that through the images, through what I read, what I see on TV, everything is being filtered through a racist, power-based lens. Therefore, it's going to affect how I see the world. And I kind of have to intentionally undo that a bit. So that's on the interpersonal side. Putting that to the side, I think it's important then to move beyond kind of racism as an interpersonal thing, how people treat each other, and understand it as an institutional dynamic, a structural dynamic, so the ways in which racism is built into society. And to understand where there are, the inequity that we see, there would be one ideology, one strain of thought that says, people have made the beds that they're lying in, right? So if you see inequity, it's something having to do with people. Something having to do with choices people made, bad decisions they've made, that kind of thing. And we can have that debate because I do believe that's part of the story, right? But I think it's very important to realize there's part of the story where they're just simply structures, access to opportunity that are closed, and not only kind of in a contemporary way, but if you begin to look at, the history of how our cities were formed, who had access, for example, to home ownership opportunities, 1940s, 1950s, home ownership being the greatest wealth-building mechanism until recently in our country. People owning homes, and therefore their homes gaining equity, and that kind of value then leading to other things. Well, black people certainly didn't have the same access to home ownership as others did, right? That was built in, structured in terms of who could get loans to buy homes. Well, that's played out in such a way, right, that you may have an income gap between blacks and whites, but if you really want to look at disparity today, you want to look at the wealth gap in terms of actual assets and who owns homes and so on. So I think that's kind of what I would throw out, would be just to, in thinking about so much of what we see, we can analyze on a kind of interpersonal dimension or a personal choice type dimension. And again, that is part of the story. But also being able to peel back and ask yourself, okay, what are some of the systemic ways in which, though, people have different access? And why Cleveland's ended up the way it is in terms of people living in certain places, some neighborhoods looking one way and other neighborhoods looking another way. And I think that's a very important part of the story.